Thank you for joining us. We're excited to talk to you live from Scuba Show. We're downstairs in the seminar rooms and in Long Beach, California. This has been great.
Yeah.
I am here with CEO Avia Kahana from Avelo.
Hello.
And Jason Leggatt from Shearwater Research.
Hello, everybody.
We're super excited to partner with Shearwater and look forward to getting into some news in this webinar series. Thank you for joining and spending your time with us, keeping up to date with our announcements. But before we get into what's coming and where we are and the excitement that we have with our Avelo Dive Center partners, let's jump into where we've been. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
We're all a little bit tired because so much has been going on. I think it's fair to acknowledge that we have been talking Avelo nonstop in multiple time zones. In fact, weren't you guys just on the other side of the planet talking and introducing the Avelo system to an entirely new market?
Yeah, we just came back from Malaysia and Thailand, where we introduced the Avelo system on a preliminary basis to a large dive shop called Anti-Gravity, and that was awesome. The staff there is fantastic, and this was just the prep event for the big event that includes a lot of instructors. It's a professional oriented event to bring in multiple dive shops in the region, and we just did a prep trip there. We were just there for 3 days, getting some of the gear and some of the staff certified, and that was a lot of fun. They have fantastic staff, and it was a lot of fun to teach new people in a new environment. And the diving is also great. And then from there we went to TEDx, and we presented the system for the first time in Thailand in the show. We were part of Dive Space. Thank you, Dive Space, again for hosting us. And we showed the market there what the Avelo system is. We granted a lot of interest. Some of that actually is now part of the onboarding event in Malaysia. And that was a good trip. It was a long, we've been on the road for quite a bit together.
Yeah, absolutely. Anti-Gravity's awesome dive shop on Perhentian, Malaysia. I don't know if we mentioned that exactly. Yep. And there's many dive shops on that island. Anti-Gravity's instructor development center and is coming on board, which is super exciting. And there's other dive shops there who are coming on board. We were sort of quite excited that many of them were already Shearwater consumers and were ready with their Terex or their Peregrine TXs to be loaded with Avelo modes and get right into experiencing and diving Avelo for the first time there. I think you certified 6 people.
Yeah, 6 people over the 2 days. Cool. And for those of you that don't know what the Avelo Mode is, the Avelo Mode is a software that now sits on all of Shearwater air integrated computers and allows you to see live not only what your buoyancy status is, but the relations between this and your workload. It also shows you your amount of gas remaining in 2 ways. One is the pressure, the traditional way, and the other one is percentage as relative to the beginning of the dive. So it's a really cool piece of technology, and the professionals there for the first time could see behaviors that they wouldn't otherwise recognize about their own breathing patterns and how they behave underwater. So it's a great teaching tool. It's a great educational tool and training. So this was a lot of fun, and we can't wait for the event to happen in about 2 weeks. It starts in 2 weeks. We still have some spots there. So if somebody's in the region and wants to join us, the instructor class, beginning to end, from not diving Avelo is about 8 days. And it starts on the 18th, and we will be there all the way from the 18th to the 26th in June. And yeah, if you're a professional that wants to join us, let us know.
So I heard Avelo is coming to Southeast Asia, which is very thrilling. We're excited to go there. We've just come back from there. The first people in Asia were certified there.
Maldives. We had dive shops from all over. We had dive shops from the whole region that are coming. Yep.
And you have global outreach at Shearwater as well with your dealers in Asia, and you've been attending a lot of these Asian dive shows. So we're here at Scuba Show in California. For anyone that doesn't know, there are a number of dive shows where we come together, we talk diving, we learn about new things coming out in the industry. You can get booked, you can learn how to dive. And it's a huge networking opportunity to see the latest and greatest in diving all across the globe. So you guys went to TEDx, and I think you mentioned META as well.
That's happening in 2 weeks.
That's happening
at Kuala Lumpur.
Wow.
Yes.
And TEDx is huge.
TEDx was huge. I think for Avelo it was the first time sort of being present at the Asia Pacific shows, but it's a real different demographic in terms of the diving community. There's I don't know how to say this in a positive way, but there's many more younger folks and couples. It's actually far more diverse, I think, diving audience, and an audience that's really craving technology, which was super exciting to see, obviously for Avelo, but even for Shearwater as a technology company. And, we have exciting news coming from the companies, and we tried our best to keep secrets, I think. We did our best. Sometimes people were good guessers. So.
Yeah.
We kept secrets because here at Scuba Show, we made a huge announcement.
Make a huge announcement.
Last night, we had a very special VIP event. This morning, we launched Shearwater launched a press release going into detail about this. But first, I wanted to hear, did you guys meet? Did I hear that 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago, I heard about Avelo for the first time, and I sent my friend Aviad here a message on LinkedIn, and I said, I would like to talk to you about this. And my email went bloop. And he was like, can you talk right now? And I was like, wow, this guy's just like me. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to talk right now. And we were on the phone, I think, within half an hour. Yeah. And
in Maui, what the next
was week? In Maui, not a little bit more than a week later, but not more than a month later. It was less than a month later. And I think we really saw the ability to collide the vision that was percolating for Avelo in terms of the new education program and style of diving that was being created, and then the power of bringing in powerful electronics to work together with that. And sort of the first embodiment of that was the Avelo Mode, which we were super excited to launch on several computers last year, and even more proud to make the big announcement we did last night. That's just got out there this morning officially.
So you're on all air-integrated computers?
Almost all of Shearwater's air-integrated computers. So if you have a Perdix 2, a Terek, a Term TX, or a Peregrine TX, you can unlock the Avelo Mode today. It is currently not available on the petrol computers or older Perdix models like the Perdix AI. So it's, but on all of the contemporary air-integrated models.
So you're using simple, powerful, reliable tools to unlock the power of the invention that Aviad made. And what are we going to now unlock that with?
Well, it started with the Avelo Mode, and then I got into like, how could we really marry our technical excellence with this innovation? And so Shearwater announced this morning that the way we're going to do that is Shearwater is going to expand into new types of diving equipment, starting with the Shearwater Jetpack for Avelo diving.
That's amazing.
It's absolutely phenomenal. We're super excited about it.
Yeah, we're seeing expansion all over the world, and it's time for us to grow. And so this has been something that's been in development for a while now, and this is a really, really big growth opportunity for both, where there's a new style of diving now that is offered by two companies, and actually growing worldwide. So
you brought the Shearwater Jetpack to life.
The Shearwater Jetpack's coming to life. There's some prototypes here at the show that we're showing people. It's very exciting. We're embedding technology that is currently unintegrated and integrating it into the jetpack. So the electronics has become a more powerful ecosystem on the Shearwater Jetpack. That's, I think, going to improve for all those people who've tried Avelo already, and you've sort of experienced the data-driven insights that Avelo brings to the table in terms of a new diving experience. The Shearwater Jetpack is just going to double down on that and really amplify that whole experience, which we think is just going to be incredible. It's already incredible. We're just going to make it more incredible. So it's going to be too much to handle, quite frankly. So awesome.
We're so busy.
So Avelo just hit our 1,000th Avelo diver for all of us, which is great. It shows it really is a big milestone for us. There is, to go from a 3-digit to a 4-digit number is a thing, and we have a lot more divers and dive shops in the pipeline. And so as we are growing, because we're still young as a company, do you want to comment a little bit about legacy Shearwater users and, what this represents for Shearwater?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, for Shearwater, we've been around for we celebrated our 20th anniversary. So I guess we're a little bit older. Celebrated that last year. And as we've really kind of established a brand presence globally in the diving electronic space, we were looking for, alternative ways to create value for divers, but also bring them on the journey towards sort of where the core Shearwater consumer lives in tech diving. And we just felt there was a huge opportunity to elevate the experience for really all divers, but making diver just better for everybody so more people stay in diving longer. Anyone in the industry knows that there's just a lot of diver turnover. There's a diver burnout. I don't know what to call it, but people, they come into diving, they do it for a while, and then they basically retire out early. And we think that technical driven solutions can make that better. I know that's why you founded the thing in the first place, is just to make a better experience for better scuba, simply better scuba for everybody. And we think that's something exciting to be part of to try and grow our sport.
Yep.
You touched on the history and legacy of Shearwater Research getting into the dive computer development. We were talking earlier about the history of dive computers and how people were scared to adopt dive computers at the outset because they have these things called tables, for anyone that doesn't know, where you would use a watch and calculate your dive and the time and your exposure for all of these complicated things. And now we have a tool that helps facilitate really precise measurement of what we're doing on dives with all of our fluid dive profiles.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was a mechanical engineer, and I successfully graduated and completed many math courses. And after having done so, when I started diving, I was sort of didn't want to have to do more math. So I was super thrilled, especially underwater. And so, we just believe like you can build better tools so that people can focus on the most important part of the experience. And I think that's what Shearwater did from the very founding of the company. Bruce Partridge felt that he could make better tools for rebreather diving so that he wouldn't be so task loaded underwater, also so that it could be safer. And this is just taking the same DNA from how the company was founded and now attaching that to a big opportunity to grow recreational diving. And again, drive people more into the sport and more on that journey to a lifelong commitment to diving.
And this is why I love the partnership with Shearwater and Avelo, is because you're touching on some points that we also brought, that you wanted to improve the safety, make a safer experience, improve the experience, how you feel on the dive. Some of the touch points that Jason's talking about. Do you want to talk about what the experience of Avelo, you're talking about experience, what does it feel like?
So Avelo, you have to try it. That's the bottom line, is that you have to try it, because even if you're a very, very experienced diver, professional, we all are. I mean, I've been teaching scuba since the 1900s, as people will tell me. Our buoyancy control is fantastic. It doesn't get any better than we as professionals are on the BCD. This all goes down by the wayside. It doesn't really matter what my buoyancy was before this. The smoother experience on Avelo is something that you can't describe. You have to try it. The origin of why it's so smooth is because the system, there is little to no drag, and there is no even thinking about the need to adjust breathing against the device that either want to pull you up or pull you down, which is the air contained in a BCD. And so the experience is just a lot more smooth. Now, because it's smooth, because we're driving the buoyancy hydraulically or with water, that's what lends itself towards getting all the data that Jason is talking about. That's what allows it. Like the idea of diving underwater and being able to establish buoyancy with a water-based instrument is what enables us to get all the data, and we couldn't have done it with a BCD.
And it reduces the task loading, which I heard you say workload, how much gas you're consuming on the dives. So can you speak to me about what task loading means in distracting you from the important things in your experience underwater?
So we now have more than 11,000 logs. And what we're seeing is when you're diving a BCD, whether you're aware of it or not, you always are in anticipation mode. Now, most of the time, you simply don't know it because it's there. That's the device that you're diving. Anticipation just means that when you are, swimming up or down in the water column, using any sort of a traditionally buoyancy control device, you have an air pocket that expand or contract. But you know it, especially if you're a professional or very experienced. So you learn how to anticipate it in advance. It feels like second nature, but you still are in anticipation mode. You still need to monitor a task. So if this was a processor, in the background, a process would be running. Anybody that comes from technology knows that if the process doesn't need to run, the life of the processor is better. That's exactly how our brain is underwater. If you don't need to think about the fact that when you're going to go up, you have to adjust your breathing or down in the water column. If you don't need to think about it, it's one less thing to think about, and you can actually either enjoy the dive, or if this is more of a technical type diving, you can focus on the task. That's why the experience feels so much smoother on top of the drag. That's what the task loading is.
And when we reduce our task loading, we enjoy more. We can, for photographers and filmmakers, we get more time underwater focused on creating that footage and having that experience.
Right.
So you invented the system. Yeah. So with the premise, how can I improve the experience, make it more lighter and less cumbersome, improve the challenges?
So the invention was on weight.
Right.
Like the idea was to just reduce weight. The first few dives showed that the diving experience itself is so much smoother. It was incredibly different. And as again, as professionals, we know what it's like to dive. Our buoyancy is great. We don't need the device. That's why it was so surprising that we found suddenly something that makes the experience noticeable for those of us who are very experienced. So as a team, we got out of the water, and then we started to analyze the data. Then suddenly we saw that there is a big difference in not only our experience, but we can quantify it for recreational divers. So the task loading that you're talking about is, we noticed it through, in the beginning, can I say that we used Shearwater data that was attained in ways that, might have not been quite kosher. But we got the data to see what the workload in terms of breathing consumption would be for recreational divers. And we could see that this reduction in workload and drag, but a lot of it was workload, just task load, actually translates to better air consumption rates. Within a few hundreds of profiles, it was evident that statistically that is significant. And it was even significant for more experienced people. And then those profiles initially started as Excel sheets, as you can imagine. And then I think when you got involved, we were still in the Excel sheet world. Yeah. So then the app was built towards those algorithms to show this. But that's how you quantify task load into a real measurement that says, okay, statistically we can see reduction in air consumption, and it doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes out of the task loading. Even for those that believe that their buoyancy is great, it's not so much about buoyancy as much as it is about a smoother experience.
And now Jason's diving the Avelo system regularly.
I have been, yes.
And the Shearwater Jetpack on the Hydro Tank.
Yes.
And you do so in Vancouver, Canada. For anyone who doesn't know, it's a wee bit cold up there.
Can be a little bit cold.
So is that expressly dry suits?
We have one psychotic employee, hopefully he watches this, who wears a wetsuit, and I'm not ashamed. I'm just said that.
But I believe you have big puffy undergarments.
So he shakes violently when he comes out of the water. But the rest of us people wear dry suits. in Vancouver and a lot of undergarments. Yeah, it can be very cold. It's absolutely beautiful diving in Vancouver. There's really cool things to see. We have a giant Pacific octopus, and big anemones and awesome stuff to see. But it takes a bit of a commitment to dive in the harsh Pacific Northwest, but it also makes it an incredible place to test gear. Right, like it's a harsh environment. It's harsh on the person. It's harsh on the gear. It's harsh in terms of task loading because of that environment. So, our brand's always been proud to have tested and dived our own products in our backyard, because there's not many places in there are some, but there's not many places as harsh as Vancouver in terms of the environment. So
Ooh, I have a question for you about this.
Okay.
So many people are trying to figure out how much weight Avelo saves them compared with their gear.
Right.
So on average for your team.
Yeah. Well, so I can speak for myself, and maybe you can't really tell here, but I'm a perfectly average person in every regard. In other words, I'm basically 6 feet tall. I don't want to say exactly how much I weigh, but an average weight, so I'm a large, right? So if you look at a stereotypical garment company, I'd be a large. And so with that sort of some kind of context there in mind, I would typically dive in Vancouver with my thermal undergarments, maybe around somewhere, depending on just how thick I am on the undergarments, 28 to 32 pounds of lead. So we're looking at,
In addition to the weight of the system.
in addition to the weight of the gear, that's lead to provide the appropriate sinking force. And again, it can fluctuate up and down based on exactly what I might be wearing that day. So we're looking at 12 to 13 kilos. And I'm shaving half of that off when I'm diving Avelo in a dry suit. So I'm down to maybe even a little bit more than half, 5 to 6 kilos.
Of the weight that you're adding.
Of the weight that I was adding to the system. And the system itself is lighter. So I think the total weight reduction is around 25 to 30 pounds. So, I'm talking about 12 to 13 kilos of weight reduction, which is, and we're walking down a hill into the dive site, and I can testify that you notice it. It's profound.
Yeah, so that's something that for the audience that cares, a few months ago we had a Catalina cleanup, and we just took a scale and had 30 people that came out of the water versus the Avelo divers, and just weighed them. As soon as they took the gear and the weights off, we just weighed theirs versus their buddy who was diving on Avelo. And overall, and we have those measurements, overall, it was consistently between 28 to 32 pounds of delta between, an Avelo diver and a standard diver. And they weigh themselves, nobody
And we
on
were
each side.
in wetsuits for that.
Yeah, and that was all random. That was random average just to see, where people fall. So if it gives you some context into where the numbers are coming from, that's, that would be one data point. We obviously have our averages from all over the world, but that's one that was done completely average, just, picking up systems on a scale.
Now that we're both in the world of jetpacks and you work in cold water, something that comes up is the performance of the pump in cold water. And funny, it actually performs better in cold water, which is not what people would expect, because for us, we don't perform as well in cold water. Can you speak to the thermodynamics of that?
The system works a little better in cold water. Every time you pump, the Avelo system, the tank itself is actually, one way to think about it is it's a bit of a compressor, right? You have an internal bladder, and when you pump water in, you're going to increase the pressure. Thermodynamics dictate that when the pressure goes up, the temperature is going to go up as well, and there's a ratio that it goes with it. So if you pump warm water into it, then you're going to bring the pressure up a little bit faster, and then it will dissipate throughout the dive. If you pump cold water into it, it's essentially a cold water jacket around the bladder. So by pumping cold water into the system, you actually get a bit more of a pumping rate, so it performs a little better. Essentially the pumping rate is faster because the pressure doesn't spike as much as it does in warm water.
So it really likes cold water.
It loves cold water.
And a lot of these components are things we're familiar with. We're familiar with tanks. There's a lot of familiar things, but putting them together the way that you have, COPVs from hydro tanks have existed for years. Batteries have existed for years. Thank you, Cave Diving Lights, for helping us with batteries, making that technology smaller and more powerful. The pumps have existed in the
fracking world.
fracking and what?
Pumps have existed.
Petroleum products.
Pumps
Yeah.
pumps
So
exist.
all of this has been put together in a unique way, and you thought to put water in a tank, which was madness.
Yes,
Kind of-
the original thought wasn't to put water in the tank. The original thought was to, when you think about what scuba is, you're going into the water with a certain amount of mass that you're going to consume. So knowing that, you have to weigh yourself in the beginning of the dive, to counter that, which means you have to start the dive heavy. There is no way around that. So the idea was, if you desert that concept and you're saying instead you have a tank that can just shrink as you dive, that was the original concept. The mechanical manifestation of that was a bladder inside of a tank. That's the easiest way to achieve that.
What I'm hearing is we're in the world of innovation together now.
Yes.
And we're constantly thinking of ways to optimize and facilitate an improved experience for everybody in diving.
Yes.
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 We are.
I mean, I've been in the outdoor industry for my whole career and scaled businesses, run product expansions. And I think, the one thing that's true for business people, and we think, we'll probably industry people paying attention to this kind of thing as you change and grow, or often you die. And so people are scared of changing growth because it's hard, but it's exciting. And I think that's what attracted our business to what was happening here is I think that the diving industry has been looking for, maybe it doesn't even know it, but has been looking for an opportunity to change and grow in a way that it hasn't been able to in the last several decades. And I think the Avelo system, the Avelo way of diving, introduces a really compelling opportunity to a whole new generation of divers, new and old, to experience the underwater world in a totally new way. I think that's going to make the business better, quite frankly.
Well, the proof is in the pudding right now. We're growing. We're growing pretty fast. Professionals that come in and join us, they don't go back. So, that's it. It stands for itself. And we're very confident with where we are in the world. And as we said, go try it.
Thank you both for talking about the growth and development, where we're going. We've got things that we're excited about. We appreciate Dive Friends Bonaire, our first dive center outside of Maui, diving, certifying Diver 1000 with Duncan. That was
Good job, Duncan.
Way to go, guys.
Yeah.
And then Catalina Diver Supply, the first dive center in the continental U.S. They had Chelsea, certified diver 997.
99.
Oh,
The last
999.
number was certified.
And then it was,
Catalina Diver
this was 998
Yes.
with Christy.
Yeah.
So we're seeing it was truly a global presence, and everyone really got excited and came together to, show their achievement. We have more of that coming. Diver 1000 got a special badge for people that are Avelo divers. We have a passport to adventure where you can claim your badges, you can share where you've been diving, and we're going to have even more performance metrics coming out. But Diver 1000 is a special badge that Serafina out of Dive Friends Bonaire will have issued to her, so she'll be able to share that here shortly. That's pretty exciting.
It is pretty exciting.
We're growing.
Your first offer for that badge, is it for sale? I know she's allowed to transfer it. Non-transferable one.
No, what?
You already have your certification.
Shoot.
But we are working toward Dive 5000 is our next goal.
Brilliant.
We've got other goals on the horizons, other things that we'd like to achieve. And we're excited to bring this world to everyone. Is there anything you really want to make sure people are aware of?
I think just the Shearwater Jetpack, where we're at Scuba Show. We're live from Scuba Show. We're showing that on the booth, but it's not available until officially launching at DEMA 2025. So don't jump out of your skin just yet to go get it. But, more exciting news coming from Shearwater later this year about that and other innovations we're working on in the business. And happy to be collaborating with you guys. I'm excited to be here together for this weekend.
Thank you for coming. DEMA show, for anyone that doesn't know, will be in Orlando this year, and it is an industry trade show. Shows like Scuba Show and TDEX are available for anybody to come of all ages, to come out, touch diving, see what it's like. And at DEMA, we'll release that to the industry, followed by more news to come in more places. You can find where we're going on our events page. You can follow Avelo at Dive Avelo on Instagram, Facebook. Find us on LinkedIn and YouTube. And we've been featured in the media here recently with Divers Ready, the Scuba Diving Channel, and Dive In. All great resources. Follow them as well. And Shearwater, how can we get in touch with you guys?
At Dive Shearwater or shearwater.com are the best ways to get in touch with us. So